we were fortunate during my year. We did not lose a lot of people. I think we probably lost less than 10 people when I was there to various things. Probably the most tragic was the loss of 5 people. And as the company check pilot doing the in-country orientations and checks, I got a young fellow that came in one day, and I won't mention his name, but he didn't satisfactorily complete the in-country demonstration of the ability to fly the aircraft. And so I went back to my senior and said, I can't honestly turn this guy loose and have you put him in the unit to fly because he just he panics. So Major Mercier, who's my boss, said, well, give him another 5 hours and see if you can loosen him up. So we did, and he still didn't do very well. And I told the major I don't think I can recommend that he fly. And so the major said, well, let me fly him. So he took him out on a Sunday morning, and they had a hard landing, and he bent the aircraft. So I got to fly him another couple of hours, and then the new commander that we had decided that this was all a bunch of hooey and that if they made it through flight school, he should be able to fly. So he put him out in the unit. Well, I said, if you do that, make sure that you put him in an aircraft with a really strong aircraft commander because he's still an unknown quantity. About 2 weeks went by, and we had a midair. One of my 2 closest friends was flying as aircraft commander, and he's a great pilot, but he's pretty laid back. And the guy that wouldn't turn loose was flying as his pilot. They'd completed an assault that day, and they were doing a company flyby just before landing. And they were flying formation. The pilot was flying cross panel and lost sight of the aircraft he was flying formation on, panicked, pulled a stick back, and ran into the aircraft behind him, mixed up rotor blades. The aircraft that had those 4 people in it crashed and burned. The other aircraft, which lost about 2 feet of its rotor, was able to keep the power on and pull all the power they could when they got really close to the ground and had a hard landing. They lost one out of that aircraft who tried to run away and got caught by a rotor blade. But we lost 5 people in that accident that could have been totally avoided if somebody in the command would have paid attention to information that was coming to them from people who should have known. So, I mean, it's bad enough to go to a war and fight and lose people in combat. But when you lose them when you should have known better is something that still lives with me today. So one of the other ones we lost was I did a lot of nights flying in, so I didn't fly my own aircraft, but a captain took my aircraft on a combat assault in my place the next day and after my night flight, and took a round in the face in the LZ. So I looked you can't help but look over your shoulder and say, boy, fate really watches out for you once in a while. Depends upon where you are. Had a lot of interesting things. Flew a lot of night missions with a light fire team or a heavy fire team. We did canal interdiction, where we would take off about 8 o'clock at night, go to the province we were going to work in, pick up the province chief and their advisor, put them in the back, take off after it got good and dark. And we carried a Xeon tank light, which could see out as far as 7 miles if you wanted to burn the power. I would fly as the aircraft commander and control the light and the radios and the mission, and we would check with the province chief in the back through the advisor to determine what areas they wanted checked and what areas we could free fire in and stuff. And we quite often found illegal canal traffic and got into some really interesting firefights. And when things would get too heavy, we would get on UHF and holler for Spooky 5-2 and have the DC-3 come in and cool the area down, if you will. One of my good friends, that the fellow I just talked to you about who died in the midair, was a guy named Gediminas Ediukaitis. He was a Lithuanian, got to be really close to him in Vietnam. Ed and I were flying about. I just made aircraft commander, but I was still flying as a pilot on a big assault that we had at an area called Viton, which was just out of Soc Trang. Trianguli, it's kind of formed a third point of a triangle between Canto, Soc Trang, and Viton. We got up, everybody got sent out for regular ash and trash missions as a ploy. We didn't know it at the time. So we got about a quarter of the way to where we were going to go for our first pickup and got recalled. And everybody got recalled. So we got all these airplanes on helicopters, I should say, on the ground at Soc Trang, and they shut us down, refueled us, and then loaded us up with Chinese nungs that they had brought in to the area. They evidently had intelligence. We didn't know what it was. Unfortunately, it wasn't the best intelligence, but we took this group of mercenaries and inserted them just out of Viton. We got the first load in, was fine. Went back and picked up another load out of Viton and took them in. What we didn't know was that they had they set the landing zone up in the center of a horseshoe-shaped defense by 3 North Vietnamese battalions that were operating in the area. And so on our second trip in, where they already had the first load trapped on the ground, they opened up. And I have never imagined, or I've never seen anything before or since, where there was that much tracer and lead in the air. It was unbelievable. I mean, flying into it, you knew you could not possibly escape being hit. So we go in and we get them on the ground, and they're out too. And on takeoff, we took about 36 rounds. They went through the engine, they went through the transmission, they went through everything. Fortunately, the good old Huey kept flying. Losing some power, had an engine fire and some other things, but I was able to get the aircraft to, when I was flying, Ed was talking. Our crew chief took a round in the chest, and he was screaming over the intercom. Ed was on the radio trying to get somebody to pay attention. And if anybody's been in a real combat situation, you learn that the first thing that goes is radio discipline. Everybody's calling for help at the same time, talking over everybody else. So anyway, I was able to get the aircraft, milk enough power out of it before I lost everything to get it about a mile and a half out of the LZ and auto-rotated into a rice paddy. I grabbed a M60 and got a perimeter set up, and Ed and the gunner got the crew chief. Actually, he was flying in that position. He wasn't really a crew chief. He was a maintenance guy. Got him out of the aircraft, and somebody else came in and snagged him and put him up. We sat in the LZ, or out of the LZ, where the aircraft was, for approximately an hour, hour and a half, just defending the aircraft. And we had a light fire team go by once in a while to make sure we weren't getting encroached on. But we got out okay. But that was a real eye-opener. You find out in those situations what combat's really all about. Had another couple of instances that took place while I was there, but mostly I think I enjoyed flying at night because you don't get hit very often at night. It's difficult to target a single point of light. Did a lot of night missions. We had some really successful night missions. One of the special ops missions that I will remember is the other person who flew most of the night missions opposite me was a guy named Jack Grimmer. And Jack and I did most of the special missions we had one mission that I remember. It was a mission with a Navy SEAL team that was going to try to recover some prisoners of war, including American prisoners of war, that were in a mobile prisoner war camp. The Viet Cong in the Delta didn't have any fixed place to imprison people, but they kept moving them around different places. So we went out and we got briefed and went out and trained to do this. And the object was to come in, have a diversionary attack, probably a mile and a half away. And we were supposed to come in totally blacked out and insert this Naval SEAL team where they could take off and recover this team. So we were all ready to go on this particular night, and they scrubbed the mission because the intelligence they got said that the camp moved and so whatever. So we thought it was done. So about 2 weeks later, Jack and I get tagged, and it's probably 5 or 6 at night, and they said the mission's on, get ready. So we took the front doors off the Huey so we could have better visibility at night. We took off, we went to Canto, took off out of Canto. I flew formation on Jack, no external lights. flew off of his instrument panel lights. And we did pretty good. Jack had got an ADF, couple of ADF fixes, so he knew at night where the seals wanted to be. We went in, and the trick was to, watch the altimeter and get down to where you were with like a couple 100 feet of the ground, and then start looking out the door, because you could, with your peripheral vision, the idea was you could pick up some movement of the elephant grass as the rotor wash caught it, and get an idea of where the ground was. So we did that, and it was really good. Everything was going really good till about 200 feet, we hit fog. And so I turned about 15 degrees to the right and continued. And fortunately, I saw enough motion out of my corner of my eye and was able to cushion the bird on, and we got the seals off, and everything was going good. And then going right in front of me, I thought I could reach out and touch it, was Jack's instrument panel lights. And he had evidently gotten turned 90 degrees, and how we didn't mix rotors with him going across in front, I don't know. But we got out of there and went out and sat, waited for the seals, and got a call to go back in. We ended up taking them out of a firefight. They missed the mobile prisoner war camp. But it was typical of one of the special ops kind of missions that you got. And it's really hard to really plan everything down and anticipate what's going to happen on something like that. So I feel real fortunate that, we didn't have an accident right there. A couple of the other things we had that were kind of fun. Oh, the big mission that I just talked about with where we got shot down, that ended up being a several-day operation to get everybody back out of there. A lot of people wounded. The night of that mission, we were supposed to have a USO show, and the entertainer for that USO show was Martha Raye. And what a lot of people don't know about her is that she's also a surgical nurse. And she showed up at Sock Drang, found out what was going on, put scrubs on and spent all day in surgery, put on her show, and then came back and went back into surgery the next day. I changed my whole attitude toward people like that at that time. I mean, that was really something. Got a chance to fly a couple of celebrities. One of the guys was a guy named Hank Aaron. They sent him around to different camps. I was really pretty embarrassed on that flight. We'd gone into an outpost so that Hank could circulate around and meet everybody. And they started getting a rocket attack. And so everybody is in a tizzy to get Hank out of there. And so the pilot of the new aircraft commander that I was flying with jumped in, and I jumped in, and as a pilot, I cranked it up, and I'm in the process of going through the pre-checks. You do a hydraulic check and a governor check, and then you wind it up and go. Well, I'm just put the governor into emergency governor to check that it doesn't compressor stall, and Jack cranks it up to take it off, and we oversped the rotor. And so we get out, and there's oil dripping out of the blade cuffs, and Fortunately, the attack didn't turn out to be anything really. And they brought us another aircraft. But my goodness, that was a really embarrassing time to have a miscommunication in the cockpit. So had a lot of interesting people there, met a lot of great people. Got a chance to see a lot of the town. One of my classmates took his R&R in the Philippines. Not classmates, my one of the pilots. He met a gal and decided he's going to get married to her, and so he arranged the Army, and we went back over and asked me to be his best man. So I got a chance to go to the Philippines for a couple of days while he got married. That was interesting. So it wasn't all blood and guts. It was a little fun here and there. Probably the most emotional part of the thing was when I went home. The trip home. Everybody asks about, how did you get received when you went home? And none of that didn't really affect me because when I got to the camp where they put you up for a couple of days and got you booked on the airplane to go home, I was just relaxing, and a Red Cross representative showed up and said, your grandfather's died, and we're going to try to get you on the first airplane home. So instead of leaving in 3 or 4 days, they told me to be ready to go that night. So I scrabbled, got all my stuff together, and got on the airplane. We went through Japan on the way home, and the trip was, compared to the trip over, was extremely fast. I think we spent 9.5 hours in the air from Japan and landed at Travis Air Force Base. And from there, the Red Cross had a representative who met me and got me to the San Francisco International and onto an airplane headed for Portland, is the closest to my home in Yakima. So I get off the airplane in Portland and find out that the Yakima airport's closed to commercial traffic because they're extending the runway. So not knowing what's going on at home with my grandfather, his funeral, and everything. So I booked myself with an air taxi operator who they were still open to civil aircraft. So he was kind enough to fly me right up and got out, caught a cab home. Nobody's home. So I'm standing on the front porch, got my duffel bag and everything, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do. And get a honk and turn around, and a guy who's a friend of the family, he was a surveyor. I'd worked for him for years in high school. Said, leave your bag and get in. So I did, and he took me to the cemetery. And they were just interring just put my grandfather in the ground. And my poor mother turns around from saying goodbye to her dad. And damn near killed me when she tackled me. It was crazy. Probably the single most emotional point in war for me. So anyway, from there, I got 3 years in Germany as a medevac pilot, and later flew about 20 years commercial as a second job. I can't begin to tell you how much I learned from my tour in Vietnam about people, about myself. It's probably the most important single educational thing in my life.